Peace and blessings, family, and welcome to Labors of Love podcast. We are here to inspire, uplift, and enlighten. Each episode, we will be hearing from Black midwives, doulas, and other traditional childbirth supporters who have dedicated their lives to being of service to Black mothers and families in all aspects of the motherhood journey. This evening, I have the privilege of speaking with Nicole Sublette. Nicole is a licensed psychotherapist, certified hypnotherapist, Reiki master, empowerment coach, feminine mentor, social advocate, and mother of three. Nicole has published several wellness articles, developed nonprofit programs, is currently on the NAMI New Hampshire Board of Directors, is a professional public speaker, anti-racist educator, and has worked in the human services field for over 20 years. Thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so pleased this evening to have the conversation with Nicole Sublette. I'm just looking forward to where this goes. So we're just going to jump right in and to the conversation. So prior to your first experience and prior to doing the work that you do, what was kind of your understanding and your messages around pregnancy and labor and delivery?
Oh, so prior to doing the work, and actually, I had my first child prior to starting on my work in psychotherapy. And I remember like when I was prepping and I was just reading all the books and I was super excited and I was reading all these parenting magazines and I was like, oh, when your baby comes, it's going to be like the most blissful experience of your life. And it's just amazing and feel love like you've never felt before. And so when I had my first child, while it was true and I did love like I had never loved before, it felt like I was in for this giant rude awakening because also my baby was like this stranger to me. So when that I had to reacquaint myself with, so when I had to get to know and just, and babies take a lot of care and, feeding every 2 hours or more and the lack of sleep. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is kind of like a hell. So it's very different messaging when I
Right.
had my first child. Yeah.
Definitely. So as far as like, coming into it, you've having this idea and then being in the experience and it, you know, feeling very different than what the assumption or the expectation or what was considered the norm. Did you have any support around you? Did you feel like it was up to you to kind of figure out and navigate on your own? What was that like?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question because that's what I wanted to also talk about was the first thing I noticed was my sense of isolation. I was one of the first in my peer group to have a child, and I really felt like I had to navigate it alone. And there's people who came with like well-meaning advice. Yeah, I felt really isolated because it really was a huge transition and, and specifically in my identity. So I didn't have a ton of people to really relate to. And that was really a hard adjustment. And then I also felt like I had to do a lot of these things by myself and navigate it and figure it out. And that was a very difficult process for me and lonely.
Wow. Yeah. No, I could definitely relate to that. So how from that first experience, how did that kind of shape your path to where you are now? Were there some twists and turns? Was it kind of a direct route? Like how did you get to the understanding in the work that you do now?
Well, it definitely was a journey and a path. And I know for myself, once I had my first child, it really put things into perspective. And I knew that one thing that I wanted to do was to support and to empower women. It's always something I wanted to do. I just was not sure in which vein that would look like. So once I had my daughter, that's when I decided to go to grad school and pursue a degree in psychology counseling. And while I was doing that, it was very taxing and challenging. I realized that I couldn't hold everything by myself because we have this paradigm in our society that women, they've got to do everything and they've got to do it well and they've got to do it by themselves.
Right.
And I realized I couldn't hold everything that I was trying to do. So that's when I started to reach out to support. And I actually had also joined a group for mothers with infants, which I thought was a really phenomenal group to have that kind of support.
Wow. Yes. So was that joining that group, was that prior to you coming into the understanding or, the expertise of postpartum? Was that just something that you came across to kind of support yourself in the process?
Something I came across while I was supporting myself in the process, and it was really eye-opening for me, and it actually further honed, like, the direction of where I want to go and how I wanted to support women, because here I was in a group with these other women who are just having these super candid discussions about their fatigue, their tiredness, sometimes fantasies of throwing the baby out the window because they can't do it anymore. It's very real, and it was outside of what we've been shown in the magazines, or sometimes having difficulty attaching or bonding. And so, um, when I graduated from my grad program, I actually started out as a family therapist, and I worked with a lot of women who had postpartum, and also many of the women not only had postpartum, but were also navigating having other children too. So managing their whole family as
Mhm.
well.
Wow, that's intense. So, what were some of the things about the group? I know you mentioned these candid conversations. Was it the understanding, like, I'm not alone? What were some of the tools or the things that stood out to you that was like, okay, this is beneficial. This is what we need.
Yeah, it was definitely the candid conversations. And also, what I found was another rule of the group, that there was no advice giving was allowed, and you had to
Mhm.
ask if you wanted to, if someone was sharing and you wanted to offer some input, you had to ask their permission. And that was really nice, because oftentimes when we connect with friends or family or other supports, they're definitely full of advice, and sometimes you just want a space to be in a space to vent.
Absolutely, absolutely, and just to be heard, right? Like
Yeah.
it not advice, no judgment. I need to release this, so that I think that in of itself is powerful. So from there, how did that shape your academic pursuits and just what it is that you developed, and kind of go into what it is that you've developed?
So how it shaped it was that it just gave me different perspectives and understanding. And one of the most important things I want to discuss is that it's really helpful if one is feeling a sense of isolation, is to somehow reach out to find community, whatever that might look like. And it's also moving beyond the norms of, or these ideas of perfection, the perfect parent, the perfect mother, the perfect whatever, and really offering grace to ourselves as we show up, exactly as we show up,
Yeah.
good and bad. And so that's really informed the course of my treatment, is to really normalize and validate for women their experience, with also helping them move through their expectations of what they think they should be, instead of and shifting back into being present with what they are.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, no, that's powerful to reconnect in a sense to that which is like the divine peace to you, that where there is no judgment.
Mhm.
So if for the audience, just so that they can get a clear understanding of um, like who you are and what it is that you do. I know we're speaking from a perspective of your journey, but and I'm sure the intro just shares so much about it. But what is it that your focus is, and what is it that keeps you motivated to expanding even beyond that on this journey of wellness?
Absolutely. So I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor, also a certified hypnotherapist, a certified medicine integrative provider. Oh my goodness, I feel like I have so many acronyms and so many things that I do. I'm drawing a blank.
It's
I've
amazing.
got quite a few. I'm pursuing my doctorate in bioenergetic medicine, which is really looking at the body system. So, how can we holistically heal using a variety of modalities and tools? And I also do diversity, equity, and inclusion work. So helping communities that have marginalized statuses, which includes all women and
Yeah.
anyone who identifies as female. And so that is the scope of work that I do, is really to bring equity and support people with healing mind, body, and soul.
Mhm. And that, again, just that list of, I know we spoke earlier about, just some of those modalities and how it's all interconnected, but just how that understanding is so powerful and so vast. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to break down, and I definitely want you to go into a little bit of what that looks like. But one thing that you mentioned, as far as like the diversity and inclusion, I know a lot of the conversation around how we find ourselves, particularly as women of color who are birthing in these spaces where we may feel unsupported, or the statistics become overwhelming, and just what it is that we're doing naturally becomes something that can bring up such anxiety and can result in traumas. So just this work and what it is that you're talking about is so powerful and definitely interconnected. So are there ways in which you are interweaving the psychotherapy aspect with the quantum wellness, and the equity and inclusion? Like, how do those things connect for you?
Oh, they're also connected in a very beautiful and big question. So I'll try to be as concise as possible. But starting from an equity lens, we have different levels of oppression. And at the top is this ideological oppression, where the oppressor is. And so when we have an ideological oppression, what it means is that the way people think, the ideology, is what is causing the oppression. But what happens is we filter down through the ideology, which goes to institutional, which goes to interpersonal, which goes to internalized. So women as color, what often happens is that when I see women, they're feeling anxious,
Mhm.
they're feeling insecure, maybe they're feeling depressed, and they're like, what is wrong with me? And that is a form sometimes of internalized depression. What is wrong with me? Because oftentimes we live in a system that doesn't support us, and the system is actually fundamentally designed to make us question ourselves. And when we question ourselves, we become less efficacious as people. And so it's really meant to disarm us and destabilize us. And
Mhm.
so for one, it's I help women in seeing that there's a bigger picture out there, and a lot of damaging messaging, especially if we're talking about parenting, right? And a lot of the parenting magazines are not even like that diverse, or parenting platforms, or what we're seeing on TV and all these things. There's not representation is changing, but it's not quite there yet to being fully diverse. And so it's kind of having one wake up to oneself, like, okay, this, how I'm feeling, started outside of me. This is something that was conditioned into me, but it's not of me. So we start there. And then we move on to things like basic things like, how is one sleeping? How is one nourishing themselves? Are their rhythms, kind of their biorhythms, matching the natural rhythms? And so it's just, that's kind of that holistic wellness piece. And what can one do to really heal themselves on a physical level, with simple things like good sleep hygiene, and good nutrition, and good supplementation, and appropriate exercise. And so we'll work there, and then also working on the mental health pieces as well. A lot of times, for a good amount of people, it comes back to our families of origin. Sometimes and further beyond, an ancestral trauma, but it's like how our families have conditioned us to show up, and also how our families have conditioned us to show up as parents, and or as women, and what is the expectation. And so we work on those things as well.
Wow. And that is powerful, that family of origin piece, because I feel like that is, um, it speaks a lot to how we walk into this experience. On this platform, we primarily talk about the labors and delivery, like labors of love. It's that whole transformative aspect of giving birth, bringing life into the world. And that family of origin, I find across the board, just people's messages coming into it is very different. And there's a consistency of almost with women and men that, we really didn't talk about this. Or, if I am looking at alternative ways, then it's not really supportive. Like I'm getting a lot of flack and I'm having to, you know, deal with that in addition to this vulnerable space that I'm in. And if that's how we're feeling as women, just like this isn't really outside of sex ed and things like that, there's really no deep dives until you choose to do it for yourself. And typically, that unless you're in that profession, it doesn't occur until you become pregnant on your own. And with men, it's like they're not introduced, like we're not having that conversation outside of sex ed and like how conception takes place. It's like that's the end of the conversation. So just when you spoke about like the family of origin
Yeah.
and really what it is and how are you getting things on board, I think that's a powerful thing to begin to unpack. So how do we do that prior to, being in that transformative process in that vulnerable state?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when I work with people and specifically women, oftentimes, and they're looking to conceive, I will often do trauma work with them if they have any trauma and qualify for trauma work. We will do that work before they actually conceive. So they're actually breaking that maybe epigenetic cycle because trauma lives in the body and it is passed down. And so we will do a lot of work beforehand so they can come prepared. And then of course, I'll stay with them through the pregnancy and then, post birth. But we do a lot of work beforehand. And it was really interesting. I had this one client and she's, looking to conceive and she's in a good relationship now, but had a string of abusive relationships. And as we were deep diving, this is not a knock on any kind of religion, but her fundamental upbringing in Christianity, her family literally turned the other cheek. And so she was able to connect how her family through religion was to accept abuse, right? Not to create a boundary or to take a stand, but to accept all sorts of behavior. And so that was how her family took it. And so it was a really powerful awakening for her she said, I can set boundaries for myself. I don't have to accept abuse, even though my family of origin said, yes, this is what we do. We just always turn the other cheek. No matter how people show up, even if they're abusive to us, we're just turn the other cheek. And so it was really powerful. And so she made that shift. And as she's shifting, she feels her body also shifting and getting ready to start that process of working to conceive with her partner.
Oh, wow. Wow. So that takes me to a whole different connection that was an aha during while you were speaking of just even looking at this on an energetic level, right? We automatically assume that it's something in the body that, I don't have my eggs aren't fertile or, his sperm count is lower. But just from the energetic perspective of how that impacts our ability to conceive and what could result from doing work on the energy and like the non-tangible things that impact this process. So I think that is really phenomenal. Is that something that you focus on as far as in the work that you're doing, that it's beyond the physical, but more so how do we tap into and heal the energetic aspect?
Yeah. Yeah. From the training that I've had and the research that I've done, and it is my belief. And so I'll claim it as my belief alone. And, if it resonates with people, then, that can be their truth too. But I believe that most pathologies, illnesses, it all starts on an energetic level before it actually turns to physicality. And so when we're working on clearing on an energetic level, we can really help to clear and to heal our bodies because there is definitely a link, and this is science beyond my belief, but there is a link between PTSD and disease and short in lifespan because we're always on the fight, flight, or freeze, and so we're always in survival mode. So we have this cortisol and adrenaline running through our body all the time because we're getting ready to move, and that really it's what happens is that causes bodily inflammation, and we have inflammation. Inflammation can lead to disease and the oxidation of cells, and so it is all so interconnected, and so it's important to actually work and to integrate on all those levels when we're healing ourselves.
Oh my gosh. Well, that just spoke to my spirit. I'm telling like that whole energy and like you said, the whole it manifests on an energetic level before it
Yeah.
becomes a physical anything and the connection to certain traumas and certain experiences and how that formulates in the body. So and like you said, it's science. There is documented research that confirms everything that you just spoke about, which I think is powerful and enlightening, especially to those listening who may not have heard of this understanding. So if there's someone listening and they really are resonating with what it is that you're saying, and they may want to work with you, and they're considering, conception, like they're in the planning phase. That's where they are. Are there any things that they can begin doing on their own to kind of get them ready? Maybe get them open or, from a vibrational standpoint, open to the work that it takes to get to where they want to go? Are there any tips or things that you could impart on people to start considering?
Yeah, I think um when one is considering is to really start the process of being mindful and kind to oneself. And if one is having, we all have some, thoughts of self-doubt or, self-worth. And so if those thoughts are coming up for them, or areas where one might be insecure, right? Because we're all conditioned into insecurity. It's just a function of our society. Um, but when we find out, like, okay, maybe I'm insecure about how I show up in my relationship,
Mhm,
right? And, I have trouble, you know, I have trouble being myself, and I always have to people please.
mhm,
That is an indicator that one might want to start to do some work on how they can work with themselves on really opening up maybe their voice, whether maybe it's like praying over their throat or journaling things that they're afraid to say. Why I'm bringing this up, because if we can work on these subtle things on our own, that creates healing. Because when we have doubts or insecurities, it's just indicative of blocks or parts of ourselves that need healing. And we're not shaming or blaming these parts, but parts of ourselves that we need to bring into the light and to integrate. So it's just taking an inventory of like, okay, this is where I question myself. And what little things can I do to start healing myself?
So a sense of awareness, and I like those tools because I find them valuable for myself, especially journaling. Like that for me has been, I've been journaling since I was a teen. So just it's definitely one of those things that allows you to kind of get clear, allows you to vent when you don't necessarily need somebody to vent to. You could just kind of get it all out and release and process and kind of digest it a little different. So I definitely am a fan of journaling. So that whole sense of awareness is powerful. And when you begin to look at things in a different lens, I can definitely see where the growth um, and the openness can happen, so that you can truly begin to do that healing work. So that's phenomenal. Um, are there any? I know you did share a story earlier that was very clear in the value in it. Are there any other stories that are just indicative of how transformative this work is? Like someone who worked with you, whether or even from your own wisdom in this experience that you could share with the audience.
Oh my goodness, I've been doing this for over a decade now, so I have so many stories, but I think some of the most profound things that I have really seen are some of the most eye-opening moments, I think, is I can't give you one story, but I think it's the individual stories and how within each person, right? We, as you're talking about, we have this aspect of divinity. And so when I do my work with people and they start to actualize not who they are, but what they are and the power that they carry within, it's totally amazing. And when we start to really connect with ourselves, the world starts to open up a little bit more. Um, People start actually, without being too esoteric, people start to actually manifest
Yeah.
things that they want to manifest. And I've seen in work with me, people have gotten significant raises, better jobs, loves of their lives, so many things. Because I don't just work with postpartum, I'm a general psychotherapist, so I work with a lot of different kinds of people. And so once we really start to listen to ourselves and listen to our desires and what we really need and really start healing those aspects of ourselves that we're ashamed of, or we always want to just keep hidden away, when we start to do that, our world really starts to transform and open up in beautiful and miraculous ways that are sometimes just, it's miraculous.
Yes, yes, yes. And again, all of that just speaks to me because it's a tangible thing. Like you see that, and I can imagine how rewarding that is. And the work that you're doing is to see people, blossom into themselves. Because, unfortunately, in the society in which we live in, we're constantly bombarded with so many things, and a lot of them cause trauma, micro and macro, like on a day to day. Just looking at the news alone, how that can impact your energy. So to be doing this work and to be able to journey with individuals, and I'm sure that's very rewarding to see them kind of open up and come to that understanding of who they truly are and kind of shed those other ideas. So that's phenomenal. What are for people, I definitely want you to get into how people get in touch with you. Are there classes? Are there outside of working with you one-on-one, are there things that you're doing that you're offering that we can tell the audience about? And then how do they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So right now, I'm in some development courses. So I am actually in the process of creating courses. And so those will be out there and I will be advertising those. I do have a new course that is coming out within the next few months. It's actually about how do women heal and recover from breakups and refine themselves again and recenter themselves. So that's a new course that I'm going to be coming out within the next few months.
Oh,
Uh, because I work with women on all different aspects, just different phases of living. And the best way to contact me is through Nicole Sublette Counseling.com
yeah.
is my website. It's a good way to contact me. Or I also have on my Facebook, which is called Sacred Goddess School. So Sacred Goddess School on Facebook. You can contact me through Sacred Goddess School as well. And I have another website, multiple websites, and
Yeah.
also my becominggoddess.com, which is really individualized healing work that I do. So I do ancestral healing, hypnotherapy, cognitive behavioral work. And it's just really about how do we integrate to ourselves? How do we come home to ourselves, especially in what is going on? So for women who really, really want to take this deep dive and access their goddess self, I really recommend going to my website, www.becominggoddess.com. It's a great way to get a hold of me.
Excellent, excellent. So we will definitely have all of those websites and Facebook pages in the description. So in case you missed it, you can just click on it and get to this. I think this is such valuable information. I know a lot of our fan base or viewership are women, and just I feel like personal growth and development is something that is ongoing and can add significant value to your life. So, what you're doing is such an asset. And I definitely hope that people check out the website, check her out on Facebook, all, the social medias, connect and tie
Mhm.
into this information, whether you're, you know, looking to conceive or more seasoned in life. I don't think that there is any barrier in that. It's just valuable information. So, Nicole, I truly appreciate you
Yes.
taking the time out to speak with us, to share your energy with us. I think it's very powerful in what you're doing. I truly commend. It definitely resonates with me, and I'm grateful for you being on this platform.
Thank you. Well, I'm grateful for you as well, and I feel in such gratitude to be here and to connect with you. It's really beautiful work that you're doing and it's such needed work. So I just want to thank you. I wish that, with my children that I had known you, and all that you offer because it's so needed.
Oh, you are truly appreciated. And those watching, if you found value in this conversation, please share, share, share. Definitely reach out and connect. And we look forward to, being of service and adding value. So thank you all so much. Peace and blessings, family. Enjoy your evening.